Hi there, and welcome to this week's episode of the Accepted Authority Podcast. I'm your host, Greg Roworth, and in the Accepted Authority Podcast, we talk about the challenges around growing your consultancy firm and from a perspective of the positioning of yourself as the authority in the market, and ideally, not just positioning yourself as the owner of your firm, but also positioning your firm itself as the market authority and the company that every client would want to work for. So in this week's episode, I want to continue on from where we left off last week, where we were talking about the sales process. And in today's podcast episode, I want to talk about the 5 mini agreements you must achieve before you make the sale. Now, in this context, we're talking about the complex type of sales that most of you would be involved in a consulting situation, talking to other businesses in a B2B setting where you're delivering services that assist other organizations to become more effective, more successful. Now, many of us in the sales role, as we spoke about last week, aren't born salespeople. We maybe have learnt by experience and learnt on the job, but many of us have struggled to really succeed as much as we would like in a sales situation. Yes, I'm sure that you're competent in sales, that there's a real level of skill that you've learned and developed if you've had some experience in that sales role for some time. But what I find is that most consultants who sell have learned to sell in a corporate fashion, a corporate style, where they fall into a role that's they think is expected of them. And because of that, there's a challenge that you are put in the role of a servant instead of being the authority. And again, I touched on this last week, but it's such a common scenario where you operate as a servant, where you are really trying to meet the needs of your client. And that's quite understandable. That's what we're here for, after all. We're here to meet the needs of our clients. But often, because of the way sales has gone and has developed, and that in the past, not every salesperson has been really honest and someone that people would love to deal with. People and organizations particularly have developed a methodology of buying that attempts to protect them from unscrupulous salespeople and sales methodologies. So it's difficult to challenge that methodology. But what I want to talk about today is how to be in that sales role, how to operate in a sales meeting effectively, and to go deeper than what I talked about last week in terms of some of the specific levels of agreement that you need to reach with your potential client before you can expect to seal the deal. And a lot of us go into a sales situation really unprepared and lacking the knowledge of what these 5 agreements are. We go in trying to sell our services, trying to show our potential clients that we are the right fit for them. We do have the solutions to solve their problems, but often we go about that in ways that aren't effective for us, which leads clients to asking us to sharpen our pencil or asking those questions that I raised last week about who else have we done this work before, because there's a lack of confidence in us, or really they hold the power in the negotiation. So they're trying to get the best deal, which isn't necessarily the best outcome for them. Getting a cheaper price on a project, as you well understand, is not the ideal outcome for most clients in most situations. So your ability to help the client decide what is the best outcome for them and to be willing to pay for that, to go through their side of the process, because it's a two-way relationship in most cases with corporate sales or consultancy sales. We need to really understand what we need to achieve in that process to enable us to deliver the best outcomes for our clients. And at the end of the day, that's what we all want, if we're serious about staying in business for a long time. Because if we're in business to just get the money and do it as quickly and as easily as possible and not deliver a great service, well, we're not going to be in business for very long. And I'm sure none of you listening to this podcast have that attitude. I'm sure that your attitude, like mine, is that whatever we're doing with our clients is aiming to achieve the best outcome for them. So it comes right back to the sales setting and really getting agreement on five specific aspects, 5 elements through the sales process. And those 5 areas of agreement that we need to reach agreements with our client before we get the sale, before they're willing to sign that contract or produce that order for us, are, first of all, we must establish there's a need. We then must establish that there's value in making the changes or solving that problem. We need to establish that there's urgency. We must reach a level of trust and some mutual trust that we can work together, that the outcomes that we're going to deliver are something that they can trust us to deliver. And the final one is budget. They must have the budget to be able to fund the solution. So let's address those in order. The first one is need. So obviously, before you try to sell anything, you should establish that there is a need. And this is something I think a lot of us haven't done as effectively as we can do, because it's very easy to talk to a client and in a sales situation, start the process off with, questions like, what can I do for you? Why are we having this meeting? So the client will talk about a specific need or what they perceive as a need they have. They often will address that in terms of, we need your service. We need a specific solution that they have predetermined is is the answer to their need. So the reality is, often when a client comes to us, their need is not really the need. What they tell us they need is not really the underlying need that they want to have solved, or it's not relative to the actual problem that they want solved. So if a client comes to you with a predetermined solution, for example, we need a CRM. We need to have a better way to manage our client relationships, and we don't do that very well at the moment, so we need a CRM. Can you help us with that? So what is the real need here? The real need is not that they need a CRM. The real need is that they are not managing their client interactions, their client relationships effectively. And therefore, that is creating issues or challenges around the way the firm operates. So to establish a need, we need to dig deeper and really understand what the underlying root cause of their issue is. Because if we just accept the solution that they tell us is what they want, we're not necessarily providing them with the outcome that they're really looking for. Because when we dig down deeper into what the real problems are, sometimes we may find a simpler, more cost-effective solution than what they've come up with, but also we often discover other needs that need to be solved as well before the solution they've asked us to implement is actually going to solve their problem. So if we just go ahead and assume what they tell us is the need, and we go ahead and give them what they say they want, and then they don't get the right outcome because we haven't really solved all the problems that they thought that CRM would address, then they're not happy. Potentially we don't get paid. We end up in legal situations where there's a bun fight trying to sort out the issues. So the first thing we need to do in a sales meeting is to establish what the real need is and to get agreement about that need. Because before we get agreement about that need, if we try to propose a solution or even just go ahead with the solution that they've asked us to provide, we have not started off on the right footing. So we need to actually come to a point where there's an agreement about what the real need is, and that then is the basis to go forward to talk about what we're going to do to solve that problem. Now, the second mini sale or mini agreement we need to make then is about the value. This is about the advantage of fixing the problem. We need to establish that the solution or the potential outcome of fixing the problem actually has real value for them. Because if the solution really doesn't add much value, is it actually worth doing in the first place? So identifying the value of fixing the problem is about uncovering the advantages and the benefits that will accrue from the transformation that the client wants. We need to dig in again deeper with them. We need to have the discussion with them about what does the future look like for them. So from two sides. First of all, what is the future that they want after the service has been provided? What's the value from their perspective? But also, we need to establish the value that we understand from our experience, from our past results, and this can be part of this discussion as well. When we talk about results we've achieved from previous clients performing the same services or providing the same solutions, we can help establish a real value for our clients, because often they may know what the solution is that they're hoping for, but when we can demonstrate a real value to what we're offering, and much more than just going through the specifics of how we're going to provide a service. This is not about the features. If you understand the features benefits equation, the features are what you're going to do to solve the problem. The logistics, the service provision, the steps we're going to take them through. But the benefits are about the value that accrues after we've done those things. The value is the sum total of all the benefits, which can be financial, can be emotional, and that always need to be emotional. Even in a business context, in a corporate setting, people make decisions based on emotions. It's based on how they will feel after they receive the outcomes. So businesses and organizations are made up of people who have feelings. That's what we need to address. It's not just about the financials, but it's also about what they will feel, what the benefits of having the solution will actually mean to them. So when we establish the real value in those terms and in the perception of the client, and we again come to an agreement about what that value is that value worth undertaking any change or any solution in the first place? We need to get that agreement in order to progress towards a sale. Okay, so the third mini agreement then is about urgency. Now, if you've established value and have an agreement about the need, then there should be an underlying level of urgency, because why should you wait to achieve that value? But sometimes it's more complex than that, and we need to establish a level of urgency. And this is particularly relevant when in a complex sale, there's a number of different decision makers, a number of different layers that the sales process has to go through. So being able to clearly articulate the level of urgency and have each player, each stakeholder in this decision-making process agree that it's urgent to get started is, again, a challenge for most of us. And there are some specific ways to go about doing that. One of the ways that I've seen work very effectively is to really focus on, in your proposals and in the complex sale, sometimes you do need to write a proposal, or at least a document that lays out the conceptual agreement that you've come to about what you're going to provide for the client. But before you talk about your solution and how you're going to solve their problems, spelling out the challenges that they're facing, the understanding of what their need is and what the impact of that need is on the client, then understanding of the value, what are the benefits the client will accrue as a result of the solution you're going to provide, is really important to help people understand the level of urgency that is involved, because urgency comes about from a need to make the change happen quickly. So if there's a really negative situation that's impacting your client, and the benefits of solving that problem or providing that solution and starting to live in the outcomes of that solution are quite dramatic, then why would anyone continue any longer than they need to suffer under that negative situation? So the urgency is implied within the differential between the value and the need. So being able to articulate that clearly in your proposals and make sure that it's so plain and obvious that we need to make the change now. When you can establish that, then you're going to get the sale. So again, getting agreement about the urgency from all the stakeholders, and ideally, wherever possible, have the opportunity to talk to each stakeholder through the sales process, so that they not only get the full story and have the opportunity to really see the reality that you see and how you describe what you understand about the situation, so that they get the full picture. Because often internally in a decision-making process, people don't know how to articulate things the way you do. So being able to have that opportunity to spend time with each one individually gives you that opportunity to make sure that they're on the same page and that they agree about the urgency as well, so that you can proceed on with the sales process to get to the next level. And the next level, before we can be assured of making a sale, is to make sure that the client actually trusts us. They need to trust us personally. They need to trust our organization that we have what it takes to deliver the solution they're looking for. So building up that level of trust through a sales process and a sales meeting is very challenging. So again, this needs to be something that's embedded within your process. So embedded within your marketing, embedded within every contact that you and your organization has with your clients, but also in the sales process, making sure that everything that you've built and the foundations you've established through your marketing isn't undermined by your lack of confidence or lack of competence in the sales process. So when you're able to achieve a couple of things in the sales process, we can establish trust very easily. So one of those things is that we must operate with a level of authority and confidence that we know what the right solution is for them. If we're hesitant, if we're doubtful, if we come across lacking in confidence, then how can the client trust us that we know what we're doing? So the first thing that we need to have to establish trust is trust in our own abilities and our solution, our methodology. We need to trust that we know how to get the client the results they're looking for, and have that level of integrity that if that's not the case, if there's a doubt about us being able to deliver, then we're real about that too. Maybe it means that we walk away from the sale. Maybe we at times tell clients, no, this is not something that we can do. So being integral in understanding what you can achieve, what you can't achieve, and that some clients you're just not going to be able to solve their problems for, and to be willing to walk away is an amazing thing that establishes trust. And when you walk away in this one situation, if you tell a client, no, we can't do that, when they do have a need that you can solve, that level of trust in you has elevated immensely. The second element here that establishes trust is in your level of ability to communicate to the client that you really understand them, that you understand their situation, that you've got a handle on what they're trying to achieve. You really understand the problems that they're suffering with, and you know what to do about it. So understanding is a huge boost towards people gaining trust in you. So being able to communicate that level of understanding, being able to talk the same language, not in your jargon of your profession, but in being able to talk about situations the way they talk about it internally in their company, the way their profession talks about things. So having a real understanding of your client base and your specific clients individually, being able to talk the same language as they do, so that you're not talking over their head. You're not talking about solutions that they've got no real understanding of. They just nod, in agreement, but really aren't thinking anything about, having any level of understanding. That can happen if you're telling clients what you're going to do. So having the ability to check on their understanding as well is important. But when you check on their understanding, that they understand you and they understand that you understand them even more so, is another way that really builds trust and creates that next agreement. So when you again come to that agreement that your approach is right for them, they trust your solution, they trust that you're the right firm to do the work, then you can proceed to the final stage of discussing budget. And the budget's often a tricky one for a lot of us. We don't like to ask about their budget a lot of times. We think we can't really probe into that. That's their business, not ours. However, establishing those first 4 factors here. Do they have a need? Is there value in the solution? Is there urgency around that? Do they trust us? Then means how that we can come to that final decision about the budget. Because again, if the value need differential is large enough, then they're going to find the budget for it. Why wouldn't they? It's just not a rational or logical decision when they have so much to gain from your solution that they wouldn't find the means to pay for it. Now, in some cases, maybe they can't afford it. Maybe there is a real budget situation and you need to be able to flush that out to help them understand that, and so that you can understand it's a real situation. So again, you can walk away if it's not right for you, if the fit isn't right around the budget. But when you come to all of those 4 agreements and then agree that the price you're going to ask them to pay and the terms and conditions of that contract are relevant and right for them, that they will be able to fund the changes and the solution that you're offering. So again, coming to an agreement about that before you finally present your proposal means that you've really ticked off all the critical things that are necessary for you to get that sale. But if you don't go through the process, understanding what these agreements are, if you just briefly establish that they have a need or they tell you what they want, you talk about what you can do for them and how much that's going to cost, then you write a proposal about that. None of these agreements have really been reached. There's a conceptual understanding of what the situation is, and maybe sometimes you get a sale in that situation. But if you really want to improve your sales results, if you want to improve your sales strike rates, then building into your sales methodology a way that you can tick off agreement on these 5 specific areas will increase your sales dramatically. So again, I hope that's been of value to you. This has been the Accepted Authority podcast again, talking about the 5 mini agreements you need to achieve before you can be confident about making a sale. I'm Greg Roworth. If you want to know more about what we do at Business Flight Path or how you can improve your sales and marketing to be seen as the accepted authority and to win more sales, win more clients, then do a search for me on LinkedIn or Facebook. Just search Greg Roworth and you'll come across my profile and we can interact there. Or go to my website at businessflightpath.com to get access to free information and resources that are going to be a valuable start to learning more about this process. And it would also then give you an opportunity to book a call with me where we can discuss your situation and see if we can provide assistance for you. So this has been the Accepted Authority podcast. Greg Roworth out.